Hello, everybody. Armchair Updates coming at you with a Week 13 update from my own computer, the comfort of my own zone. Thank you to my brother for figuring out what ended up being a really stupid the function. I never even fuck with the function keys. I don't know how that would have happened. Sometimes I have the laptop on my bed and like the dog walks around on it and stuff, but I feel like that would be like a really big coincidence. I don't know how the hell it happened. I'll take the blame for it, but at least now I get to use my own computer. I don't have to worry about using the tiny little thing or something not working for Lenny tomorrow or anything. So we got should be a nice, easy Week 13 update. And it was a big week in particular they seem to all be big weeks for the Dodgers, but as we'll soon see, this week really was a nice one in particular for the Dodgers. Not necessarily record-wise. Of course, they do go 3-0. We had 9 teams go undefeated this week. The Dodgers. It's all about the Dodgers. The Blue Jays picked up 4 wins in a week, went 4-0. The Dodgers, Detroit, the Angels, again, sweep the week. The Rays, a nice 3-0. The Cubs and the Phillies both go 3-0. And then the Padres and the Marlins both go 2-0. So my prediction from a few weeks ago that losing Captain Jack would really hurt the Padres is not coming true. But as you can see, him and the Marlins both had the benefit of playing some pretty low-scoring teams this week. Not that they didn't have good weeks of their own, but it always helps going up against an opponent on a bad week. Your above 500 one-loss teams, the Cardinals, the Twins, the Mariners, the Yankees, coming off a good week in Week 12, had a nice 2-1 Week 13. The Diamondbacks come back and go 2-1. The Royals go 2-1. And the freaking White Sox again, man. The White Sox picking up 2 losses in a week where they probably shouldn't have. It's no longer hard luck Tyler, tough luck Tyler, or hard luck Twins. It's the hard luck White Sox. They just seem to be in an unfortunate position to pick up a loss or two every week when really, if they were playing most of the other teams in the league, they probably wouldn't. And then a surprising 500 week for the Pirates, going 1-1. A few teams going 1-2, the Reds, the Mets, the Braves. I didn't mention the Braves in Week 12. They had went 0-3, but they pick up a W this week. And then, man, turning it right around, both me, the Rockies, and the Red Sox. The Red Sox were 3-0 in Week 12. I was 2-1 in Week 12. We both go 0-3 in 13. The A's, the Orioles, now back-to-back weeks of no wins, so that's a stinger. The Brewers, the Giants, the rest of your rebuilding teams, the Indians, the Rangers, the Nationals, and then the Astros had a tough week going 0-2, and I'm pretty sure they may have showed up on the slim. In Week 12, it was a win for them in the battle for Texas, and I think Ray may be showing up in the slim loser column this week. So yeah, some very familiar names going undefeated, and the Angels, man, that did not give them their due credit. They continue to prove me wrong week in and week out, and I still think they're maybe it's because Dan doesn't do a ton of Discord chat or whatever, and there's nothing wrong with that, but maybe that's the reason that he, at least in my eyes, he kind of gets overlooked when we're on there knocking back and forth like the stud teams. The Angels just don't seem to come up, even though he seems to routinely be crushing week in and week out. He goes 3-0 again this week. Taking a look at, let's stop the screen share. Take a look at the numbers, whatever we want to actually call this stuff that I do. They're not. All right, yeah, there we go. A little technical difficulties yet again. So the first week, is it maybe ever? At least in a while. You know, let's get to the news and notes first. A little bit of news and notes. Per Tony, the 7-star teams went 23-3 in week 13. And as we will see here in a second, the Dodgers are now leading the season-long Triple Crown. They are number one in hitting, they are number one in pitching, and they are now number one in points per game after having another week over 5 at 5.11. Dodgers now move into first place in all 3 Triple Crown categories. So all Joe has to do is not shit the bed here in week 14, and he's going to be a first-half Triple Crown winner. No reason to think he can't keep it going into the second half. So, boy, the Dodgers are really setting the high water mark here for the rest of the teams in the league. Detroit, so speaking of the Dodgers, them and Detroit are the only 2 teams left that are undefeated within their divisions. Detroit and the Dodgers. And Detroit is coming in at the league-leading 33-3 record. Pretty impressive for the Tigers. When we check out the top pitching, we'll see that Toronto misses being in the top 3 in pitching for a 3rd straight week. So Mark clearly had a good week going 4-0, but it must not have necessarily been the arms that did it for him, or at least they weren't top 3 arms, at least not this week. The Angels break into the weekly top pitching and points per game, so he's usually putting up the good record, but not always in those top 5s. He's going to be in a couple of them this week. There's another couple new faces in the top 5 hitting. Last week we had Colorado and the Yankees show up in the top 5 hitting. Another couple new ones this week. As I said earlier, Captain Jack not really slowing down the Padres. They continue to be incredibly consistent, along with the Pirates, the Jays, the M's, some incredibly consistent teams. I don't really know what I mean by that, but I wrote it down. So Washington, the Nats, kind of a dubious record here. The new record low for a scoring week with 35 points in week 13. My God, Washington, I feel like you could plug me and Tony and Adam in there, and we might be able to cobble together 35 points. I mean, maybe, depending on who we face. Frank busted out a day or two ago on the Discord the Frank's playoff picture, which was super cool to look at. Really neat that somebody else is taking the reins on something and just adding a little bit more content to this league. I love seeing it. I love it. Even if I'm the guy that's really teetering on the edge of that 8 spot, and going 0-3 here in 13 did not help. Having an okay week this week. Gallo with the double dong today is going to help. I got a tough fucking week, though. I'll probably take down San Francisco, but my other 2 matchups are very tough. I've got the Dodgers for a second week in a row, and I've got the Pirates. So, and the Pirates are now beating me. I was barely beating them earlier, but he is now beating me. And Mark brought up in the Discord, and I had kind of thought something along the same lines. If we're never going to get that poker game together, which I really still would like to do, but maybe even for guys that don't like poker or whatever, some kind of Zoom or Skype all-star break meetup might be kind of fun. Maybe for the Derby or for the game or before the game or something, just for if a lot of us are going to be sitting around watching this shit anyway, there's no reason that we maybe couldn't sit around and watch it together. Maybe some little aside here. My home league, my original home league that first got me into fantasy baseball when I was very, very young. This would have been maybe 1996 or 7. So I was, 12 or so. It was a very small league, like a 4 or 5 man, just my dad kind of showing me and my cousin the ropes of fantasy. But eventually it evolved into a 10, and if we could get 12, we would always have 12. But steadily a 10-man league, throughout all my teenage years, my 20s. And we're still doing the league with a lot of the guys. Tony's actually in it now that I've moved away and stuff. We don't get together, but it used to be a big live draft. And then the main thing that we kind of, most of the guys would get together and we'd all watch the All-Star game. And some of those All-Star games, some of the biggest trades in that league history would go down when guys were together watching the All-Star game. So for me personally, guys talking trade during the All-Star game in a fantasy league, yeah, that like really hits right here for me. So I think it would be super cool if, we're not going to get all 30 of us, but if some guys wanted to get together, and I don't know how the logistics of that work out with everybody on a Zoom call, if everybody's talking over everybody, or can you talk to a certain guy? I only do those for meetings and I don't really play with it very often. So might have to like see how that'll work logistically, but I think that's a pretty good idea. Might be kind of weird with everybody being in a different time zone, but we're all watching the same game, right? So that's the last little news and note that I have. So let's kick it up to the biggest margin. Once again, the Dodgers sitting on top. They seem to always be. The Dodgers over the Braves by 337.5 points. And then number 2, I think this is the first week we have 2 that are over 300 points. Now this is, and I know I've said this in previous ones before, this is going to be something that shows up more often now that we have teams definitively rebuilding, or looking ahead to next year, however you want to say it. But when you look at the gap between 2 and 3, these were still some serious beatdowns. 300 points is 300 points. So St. Louis over Washington, 303.333 points. Number 3, the Dodgers again over Baltimore, a team that is not rebuilding, 223.666 points. San Diego over Cleveland, 202.167 points. And Philadelphia over Texas, 197 points. So as the year goes on, I think it's fairly obvious more and more we're going to see the rebuilding and retooling teams show up in these ass kickings. So you can take less and less from it. Not that there was really anything to take from it anyway, but it's just something to make note of. It's not necessarily like, the Dodgers did have a great week and the Cardinals did have a great week, but Washington had a really bad week. Cleveland had a really bad week. So it is what it is. I'm going to continue doing it. I'm not, the bottom 5 shit that I had been doing and now I've done away with. That was something that I added to see if I felt like it was something, and it's not. But this stuff has been here since the beginning, so it will remain. Your smallest margin, the White Sox over the Red Sox, is your number 1 smallest margin of Week 13 by 5 points, exactly 5 points. Harry actually shows up twice on this list. Shows up at number 4 again. He lost to Minnesota by 23.333. So tough luck, Harry. Tough luck, White Sox. Is no longer tough luck, Tyler. He also showed up on this list twice. So we had 2 teams show up twice. I'm going out of order here, though. Number 2, Kansas City over Houston, 13.166 points on the way to Kansas City having the 2-1 week. Number 3, Toronto over the Yankees, 20.166 points. Number 4, aforementioned, no longer tough luck Tyler, over tough luck Harry, 23.333 points. And then Tampa Bay over no longer tough luck Tyler, 26 points. So if you watched the one earlier today, you saw that the number 5 slim loss of Week 12 was like 54 points, I think. And this week we're back down to having 1 in the singles, and then the lowest or the highest of the top 5, if you will, by only 26. So a little bit more condensed like we're used to seeing on those slim margins. I'm going to take a drink here. If you can believe it or not, I have a third flavor of Perrier. This is Perrier L'Orange that I'm drinking. I don't know why the other one, lime and strawberry, is not Frenchified, but the orange is. It says L'Orange on the bottle. It's very subtle. It's not as strong as the strawberry or the lime. It's like almost like it's not even there. Not that that's a bad thing, but I was kind of excited for some orange flavor. Your point per game, Week 13, like I said earlier, the Dodgers, 5.11 in 87 games. Detroit's up there with 83 as well, but 87, that's the key to the Dodgers' success, that depth. And he stayed relatively healthy, relative to the worst teams in the league. He's had some injuries, but that depth is how Joe is able to do what he's been doing. He's always got somebody in there, and they're always producing. He doesn't have scrubs in there. I've got Tyler Wade, and he's averaging less than 1 point a game. Sure, he goes anywhere, but he doesn't fucking do anything. The Dodgers have guys in there that produce. Tampa Bay at number 2, 4.94 points in 69 very nice games. Number 3, Detroit, 4.67 points per game in 83 games. So over 80 is really the mark you want to be shooting for on a week-to-week basis. High 70s is good, but if you can get over 80, you always see those teams performing well on that given week. Number 4, Chicago Cubs, 4.43 points in 75 games. And number 5, the Angels, 4.38 points in 78 games. So we see the Angels crack the top 5 of point per game. We're going to see them crack the top 5 of pitching. Let's do the pitching first. Fuck it. Dodger Joe, once again, he led in week 12. He leads in week 13, 204.333 points. And that was enough to vault him into first place in pitching. My God. The Triple Crown. Man, impressive. St. Louis, number 2. 172.333. He was number 2 last week as well, so showing off some consistency there, the Dodgers and the Cardinals with their pitching. Number 3, the Angels, 162, tied with the Twins, so call it 3 and 3A, 162 points, and then Detroit rounding it out at 160.333 points. Seattle misses the top 5. They are in it more often than they aren't. They miss it this week by a bit. On to the hitting, the Dodgers, 240 hitting points, number 1 on the week. Detroit, 227 and number 2. Arizona, 227, tied. So very nice hitting week from Arizona. Not the first time we've seen them kind of come out of nowhere and jump into the top 5 there. The Cubs at number 4 with 216 hitting points, and the Rays at number 5, 205 points. So everybody in the top 5 this week in hitting all put up over 200 points. Last week, only the top 2 did, or rather week 12, I should say. Your points per game on the season, the Dodgers. Another well over 5 week, jumps them up, 4.33 points per game, number 1 spot. There's usually some shuffling, but the Dodgers have really wormed their way up over the last few weeks. If you go back and watch previous pods, they crack into the top 5, they move into 4th, they move into 3rd, they move into 1st. Number 2, St. Louis, so we unseated Jeff, 4.3. Jeff dropped down a little bit from 4.32 to 4.3, and he's now tied with Duke and Pittsburgh for that number 2 spot at 4.3. And then the 4 and the 5, or the 3 teams, whatever, are tied, and that's Detroit and the White Sox at 4.22 each. So really, it's the Dodgers at 4.33, 2 teams at 4.3, and then 2 teams at 4.22. And then I think you have the Jays and somebody else kind of like on that outside, waiting to crack into the top 5. So that's your week 13. Going to have Lenny tomorrow night. Going to talk about the Reds, present, future. I'm going to break down, some of the deals he's made, talk about whatever he feels like talking about, whatever comes up. And then I want to do like the first half season 1 stuff. Maybe do one, maybe have Jeff and Duke on again. Those are always fun, getting those 2 guys on. Break down the first half with them. I think the pods want to do another one. I know Blue Jay Mark wants to do one. I'd like to crank out a lot during this week where there's very little baseball. I say that, but we all know what happens. But I would like to. I'd like this to be an ABL content-filled week. I know we've got, for those of us in DZFC, we've got that draft starting up the second half of that starting up tomorrow. Maybe Lenny. I think Lenny's in DZFC. Maybe we want to talk about that a little bit. I don't want to bleed too much over. This is pretty ABL centric, but I think there's going to be plenty of stuff to fill the short baseball week with. So there's your week 13 and a little bit of insight into what hopefully comes up soon. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you soon.